You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
My guest on The Luxury Item is Isamaya Ffrench, famed makeup artist and founder of her namesake beauty brand, Isamaya. As the visionary force behind many of today's iconic fashion magazine covers and campaigns, Ffrench has carved out recognition as one of the most progressive makeup artists at large. Much of Ffrench's work subverts aesthetic traditions of beauty, instead employing illustration, abstraction, and structural modes to establish characters and narratives. Ffrench has been a beauty trailblazer since she broke onto the scene as beauty editor of ID magazine back in 2014. She has risen to fame as one of the industry's leading makeup artists, working with celebrities like Bella Hadid, Madonna, and Rihanna. Isamaya Ffrench created makeup looks for the biggest brands at Fashion Week, consulted for beauty brands like Tom Ford, Yves Saint Laurent, and Louis Vuitton, and served as global beauty director of Burberry Beauty. Until launching her own brand, she helped steer the creative vision behind Byredo Makeup. Isamaya was just named Off-White's first ever beauty curator, where she'll oversee the creative product and packaging development of the label's new beauty line. Welcome to The Luxury Item, Isamaya.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me. So it's exciting times. It's, you're a few months away to the first anniversary of launching your own beauty brand. So how's the ride been so far?
Well, I think it's been amazing. It really has been amazing. Many highs, many lows, but I guess it's important to remind yourself that lows kind of are the reason that we do this, to kind of learn from them and gain experience and ultimately kind of do better. So it's been an incredible journey so far.
What are some of the highs, the high points?
Well, I think, it's I've been in this industry for a very long time, and I've worked in this way for many other brands for a number of years now. I've worked with Tom Ford and Burberry and a few others, and I think it was just very nice to be able to have really a true version of myself coming through in a product and in the marketing and in everything that I do. Working with other brands is great because you kind of exercise a different sort of perspective and approach, but it's always quite liberating, isn't it, when you do your own thing?
And do you think your aesthetic approach has evolved now that you have your own beauty brand? Has it changed the way, you do business, the people who you deal with?
I think I'm very fortunate that because I've been doing it for such a long time and I've had to deal with, pretty kind of big clients, and I've had to have a lot of responsibility for certain things in the past. I've gained a great education in that side of things, but I think in terms of aesthetic, it's been an interesting journey in understanding what the consumer wants, because you can go into business and you can launch a creative project and sort of think, this is how I want to do it and this is what I like. But it's been really interesting learning what people respond to, and actually, sometimes it isn't always the mainstream, the kind of the commercial thing. People, at least in my experience, like weird. They like to be shocked. They like,
Right.
The kind of the fun stuff. And so it's been really interesting, exploring that.
I read in an interview where you were talking about your career and you said, I'm a makeup artist, but it's always been a bit of a stretch for me to quote that as my job because it wasn't my job ever at the beginning. You became that. Yeah,
I became it. And I think still in my practice, I do things outside of just makeup. I'm a creative director, I'm an art director. I make films and music videos, and I think my background was always in kind of fine art and 3D design. That's what I did at university. So I never went into with the intention of becoming a makeup artist. It's just, I guess that's kind of where my talent fell and what at the time became the right place to put my kind of creative spirit into. So I suppose that's why, because if I just called myself a makeup artist, it feels very limiting. Do you know what I mean? And
Yep.
It's nice to be able to feel like you do more than just one thing.
And when did your work first show up in fashion magazines?
I forget the date exactly, but I would have been in my very early 20s. And I wasn't a practicing makeup artist. I was straight out of art school. I was in a theatre company. I was doing face and body painting to, pay my rent. And somebody within my kind of friendship circles, he's a photographer. He's called Matthew Stone, and an artist. Sorry, he's an artist called Matthew Stone. Was doing a shoot for ID magazine, and he needed a body painter. And I'm pretty sure my going rate was probably a drink in the pub afterwards at that point. I'm realizing why I got so many gigs so early on. So it's a very cheap ride. But he asked me to come in and do some body painting on the shoot, and I did it. And that really was the moment where I realized that kind of this fun side job that I'd been doing, I could actually make a career out of it, and other people were doing that too. So that was my first experience in the world of magazines.
So do you think that was a turning point for you, which accelerated the awareness of your talents to a broader audience?
I think there was. I think that definitely did help, because I know after that, I think when I then realized from that experience that makeup and body painting and face painting, whatever you wanted to call it, art on the face, when I realized that that was something I could do, I started sort of pursuing it and doing my own shoots. And I think that actually quite soon after that, I did a couple of other shoots for ID magazine. Still, erring on the side of painting and face painting and stuff, but that definitely helped to get the ball rolling, not just kind of personally, but I guess people saw what I was doing.
And you quickly built a reputation as one of the most innovative minds in beauty and became a creative catalyst for so many companies. So why was the right time to finally flip the switch and start your own line?
I think personally it was the right time, because I've worked with so many brands now, doing what I do for my own brand in sort of varying degrees, whether it's the creative direction of the campaigns, or it's the product development, or it's the social strategies, or whatever it is. And I think it just got to a point, COVID happened. I had a lot more time on my hands, and I just kind of decided that, why not? I had a couple of years where I was able to start kind of brainstorming and working, putting a plan in place, I suppose, for when we came out the other side. And it was a bit of a blessing, really. I don't know that I could have really taken that time to do that at any other stage of my life, because I'm always so busy. I'm traveling so much.
So did you see any kind of gap in the beauty market that you felt was kind of ripe for the taking?
Um, well, definitely, in as much as I felt there was so much that could be done, in packaging and product design and development. I mean, for me, I've always found it so baffling that, fashion gets to have all the fun. And, of course it's very different because you wear clothes, but you kind of wear, you wear makeup too. And I think studying product design really gave me a sense of the importance of having a real kind of personal connection to the objects that you have around you. They tell stories, they can enhance your life, they can help define you. And I think, just for me, it felt like there was a huge gap in the makeup market for doing really interesting things, because these are things we carry with us all the time. They're our talisman of the time.
Right.
They make us feel good, they're symbolically loaded. There's makeup's actually very, in a bigger sense, though, a quite powerful thing. And the beauty industry, as you know, is, I think, the only industry to survive the recession. So there's obviously a lot to our relationship with cosmetics and that side of things. So I think for me, it just made sense to do something more with something that felt very close to everybody's kind of, I suppose, close to home. I don't know a better way of putting it. Whether it was so important. Why do we treat it with? Why is everything so disposable and so kind of cheaply made? If you're carrying them around you, they're on your table, on your shelf at home. So that's kind of where my brain went.
And as you mentioned before, you work with the likes of respected names like Burberry, YSL Beauty, Louboutin, Tom Ford, Tom Brown, Byredo. What did you
Mm,
learn from working alongside these iconic luxury brands that helped inform the way you went to
mm.
market and building your brand?
Well, I mean, I've learned so much. I'm so grateful for all of the brands that you've just mentioned. I think I'm one person, and I'm a creative person, and I can be very kind of mile a minute. I have my own aesthetic tastes, but when you work for brands like that, they're so well put together. They're so well managed. Um, they do luxury so well, and I think for me it was really important, to be maybe it's a bit cliche. I am a bit of a scrappy artist,
Hmm.
and so to be able to be in an environment that shows you how to do things in a very different way was um, was kind of priceless. So I think working with Burberry, everything is so meticulous and so beautiful and so, so well kind of curated, I suppose. And the same with Tom Ford. It's really great to have these different lenses on beauty. Because they are all different, Byredo's different again, and I really helped shape that Byredo lens. But I think it's just you kind of just gain an insight into all of the different ways that kind of the different, yeah, I suppose, perspectives that people have on beauty and what works and what doesn't.
And you were at Burberry as global beauty director at a time when Riccardo Tisci was spearheading
Mm,
Burberry's creative transformation and revitalized
mm,
Burberry's brand image. How did you
mm,
work with Riccardo in translating his vision and direction of the fashion brand to beauty?
yeah. Well, funnily enough, the fashion brand and the beauty brand were actually quite separate. They were kept quite separate. So, of course, there was crossover when we did shows and that kind of thing. But on a kind of day-to-day level, with the social strategies, the shoots and the campaigns, they were very quite different in spirit. I think Ricardo is a really, really brilliant and interesting designer because he kind of uh, he's actually very, very good at doing sort of minimalism in a way, and actually that's kind of what I took away from the Burberry beauty aesthetic. It's really his version of beauty. I think is actually very, very natural. So
Hmm.
often it was the problem we were, you solve problems. I'm a problem solver in my job, and it was how to get makeup onto a face where the ideal is just natural beauty. That somebody that doesn't wear makeup, raw kind of feminine qualities. How do you put stuff on that and keep that feeling as kind of timeless as somebody who doesn't wear any makeup? So it was quite interesting working with him, and it definitely changed my approach to makeup because he is such a minimalist.
And were your creative boundaries more limited working on a heritage brand?
Well, they perhaps they were, it's just different, really. I suppose not for the shows. I mean, we did some really wild things for the shows, and that's kind of where we got to have a lot of fun. Um, one of the, for one of the campaigns, I stuck shells all over a model's faces and created these kind of amazing um, sort of oceanic mask type creatures. And then another show, we gave all the models these big prosthetic deer ears. So
Hmm.
there was we were having a lot of fun with it. But I think, again, Ricardo's got that kind of maximalist, minimalist quality to his work. And yeah, so it's always a bit of a challenge trying to figure out what's going on in someone else's brain, isn't it?
Right. And your debut collection dropped last summer. It was titled
Mm,
Industrial. The campaign around industrial derives inspiration from the world of BDSM,
uh-huh.
machinery, and fetish. And you chose renowned fashion photographer Steve Klein to shoot the campaign. His style just seems like a perfect match. And the packaging also encapsulates the same hardcore theme. So, right out of the gate, what statement do you want to make about this collection, along with its supporting
Mm.
campaign, to convey about your approach to beauty?
Yeah, I think, I'd always had this idea that when I launched my own beauty brand, the hardest thing for me to define was what my makeup might look like sitting on a shelf in 10 years' time. Like I work in fashion. We do, 2 to 4 seasons a year. You're constantly doing new things, seeing new things. The climate's changing all the time. So it didn't make sense for me to do a one look makeup brand. I wanted to have fun with it as well. I wanted to do these collections that might change, some might stay, some might go away, collaborations, because that's how I work in my regular life, as a makeup artist, and that's how we all kind of work in fashion. So I had these various ideas of collections that I wanted to do and wanted to kind of launch with, but I decided to have, I decided to release the industrial collection first because it just felt like the most radical, different. It felt so radically different to anything I'd seen in the beauty market. And I still think it's very, very different. Like you say, it references kind of BDSM culture, and it's black and it's kind of latex and rubber inspired. It's quite sexy, and there's a black kind of lip gloss in the collection. And you've seen the campaign. It's all quite full on. Right. But for me, what I had to make a statement with it, because what would be the point? And I think people were expecting me to as well. So it felt like a no-brainer to launch with something as kind of extreme as that, I suppose.
And when you launched the collection, you said, I'm creating my own world for a new generation of makeup lovers. Who is this new generation that you're speaking to?
Well, I think, as far as I'm aware, makeup is incredibly repetitive. It's how many ways can you skin a cat? How do you reinvent the wheel? The same with makeup. You're using the same, it's not like fashion. You can't add shape to a lipstick and wear it back to front or whatever. It's like you have these a kind of a finite, in a way, number of products, from lipsticks to lip glosses to whatever, a finite number of colors. And so makeup for me became very, very uninspiring. And I think for a lot of people, it became quite sort of uninspiring. And I think it wasn't just about a new generation of makeup lovers, but I feel like I'm presenting a new way of doing makeup. I don't think I'm necessarily, I'm not, anti-makeup. I'm just anti-industry, I think people respond well to new and exciting things. And for me, that lay in the approach to, the packaging design. People are very afraid to take risks, but without risks, you don't ever kind of gain new ground.
And it's interesting, your business model also takes a different tack. Instead of all at once availability, Isamaya operates, and correct me if I'm wrong, it operates a drop model of limited edition products, each with its own theme. Industrial was the first drop. Why did you decide to take that approach?
Well, we initially, when I first talked about the launching the collections, I wanted to do a drop model approach, but actually I've kind of decided that these collections are working so well and people have responded so well to them, it would just be a shame to make them limited edition.
Right, pull it away.
It would, especially with the latest collection, we've sold out so many times. It kind of doesn't make sense to do such limited things. I think the thing that I don't want to do is make so many products that then there's a huge amount of waste, and I really try as much as I can with every collection to find sustainable ways of designing packaging. So some of the palettes, for example, you can reuse as jewelry cases. When you finish with the eyeshadows, you can flip out the inside and it becomes a box. Or like the industrial collection, you could reuse the metal components as earrings or whatever you wanted to do. So I try, it's, the idea of sustainability is a very long-term goal for me, but it's really important that for me, my angle is to have products where you're able to reuse certain things from them or components. So it's not always about waste. So at the moment we are doing capsules, but they're not quite limited edition.
Right.
So but it's important for me to, keep being creative and inventive. And that's why I did the capsules. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it challenging to develop beauty products in such short windows?
Yes, it is hell. No, it's not hell. It's I think my team might say it's hell because there's so much to do. But it's great, because then you're not sitting on the same old thing the whole time. It's very exciting. It's always very exciting when you see the prototypes. It's very, of course, there's a lot more stress that comes with doing a lot more work. But ultimately, I'm not here to lead an easy life.
Right.
I'm here to try and, do interesting things. And so I'm going to continue doing that for a while, I think.
So it's almost a year into your business, and who do you think your customer base is today, and how closely does it match to who you thought it would be before you launched?
Well, one thing's for sure, I didn't think I'd see as many grannies carrying around a penis-shaped lipstick as I have done. I think that's got
That was
got
the
everyone,
shocker,
that
right?
one. Yeah. So it's nice to think that the demographics kind of broadening. I really, I did think that it would have been a kind of a very Gen Z millennial audience, but actually, because the products that we're making they're quite beautiful. They're beautiful products. They are well designed. They look good in your handbag. I think actually the age range is everything from kind of 16 up to women in their kind of 50s and 60s even, not 50s, 60s. I have lots of recurring customers who are in their 60s who love, the Wild Star collection has really captured that audience, funnily enough. It's just nice thinking that it can be appreciated by, lots of different people.
It's interesting. The pandemic disrupted many of the daily routines and habits that molds a person's identity. And coming out of the pandemic, consumers were redefining who they are and, realizing that they do not have to be the same person they were in the past. And they've been more experimental, more creative, and not adhering to traditional standards. Have you seen a rise in this expressive beauty?
Oh, absolutely. Totally. I mean, before the pandemic, I set up a company. Well, it was a sister magazine to Dave's magazine. It was Dave's Beauty, because I had realized that, there were this whole hundreds, thousands of young people who were completely sort of underrepresented within the beauty community that were doing all of this amazing stuff. The rise of the selfies, the rise of social media and makeup at home and creativity and that kind of thing. And these people were not being given a platform or any kind of way to show and express it other than maybe an Instagram. So I set up Dave Beauty really with this in mind, as like a legitimate space for the young kids in the beauty community to share and, be kind of, exposed essentially. And I think that was just elevated even further into lockdown because people just didn't have anything to do. Jobs were taken away. And what do you do when you're a creative person sitting at home? Well, lots of people turned to themselves and picked up makeup brushes and got really, really experimental and creative. And it was just amazing. So I think there was that huge push towards doing quite exciting, radical things, which I think was really in part driven by COVID. And then there was the other side coming out of that, where there was, I suppose, almost like I wouldn't say backlash, but another kind of extreme where people went totally minimal,
right,
and had maybe more of a, took things down a notch, realized maybe they didn't need that much makeup, or maybe it was more important to look good from the inside out and took up, cooking and did more exercise and put the foundation down and kind of embraced who they were. I think there were these two quite you kind of maybe fell into one of two camps. Again, the kind of the minimalist or the maximalist.
And in discussing the creative process, you said in an interview, if you want to create anything new, you always have to look outside of beauty. And that gets harder and harder for us. But if you put a different inputs in, different outputs will come out. So where do you look outside of the beauty arena to spark the creative process and explore new possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, everywhere really, everything from conversations to, traveling is one of the most important things, I think, for creativity, not just visually seeing new things, but experiencing things, tasting new things, hearing new things, just taking your whole physical and sort of sensorial body out of the mundane of every day, because I really, it is, it's as simple as what you put in will kind of determine what comes out of you. So yeah, read, look at stuff, travel. I really I really can't
Right.
like stress that enough. And just try new things, because I think the brain doesn't work necessarily in a linear way. I think by taking up a different hobby, your brain will be, processing things in a new way, and fundamentally that will have knock-on effects on how you approach other things. So, just live a life of experience.
Your second collection, Wildstar, which you just mentioned, had a cowgirls theme. And now you've
Yeah.
been getting a lot of attention around your latest collection, Lips, which dropped in December, and it ratchets up the not safe for work up a few notches. And the collection consists of refillable lipsticks that come in an anatomically correct phallic shaped tubes. And that's quite a reroute from, the rhinestone girl, cowgirls. So
Yeah.
why the male form theme for this collection?
Well, for the industrial collection, we did a female torso, and it was very kind of, there was a lot of kind of feminine elements to the industrial. And I mean, listen, you can't get around the obvious fact that a penis makes a very good shape for a lipstick. I mean, listen, it is what it is. People love to try and sort of analyze this and intellectualize the whole thing, but it's very straightforward. A penis makes perfect sense as a lipstick. And I'm surprised that no one had done it before.
So when it comes to the global fashion scene, politics is interwoven into the bones of collections. In the past, you've done the makeup at runway shows that some socioeconomic overtones were there. Even two of your beauty collections have explored these issues. How important is it for you to participate in these socio-political conversations?
It's a tricky one. I think as soon as you become a brand, you have to be very, very careful. It's something I've become aware of, and it's been one of the kind of the more challenging aspects to launching your own brand. My personal voice has to be quietened now because I represent something much bigger. And I think, I've worked with Vivienne Westwood for years. She was a huge, proponent of activism, and, she was, the leading person in the fashion world who was a keen activist, and other people as well. But I think, for me, the way I do my part is by celebrating the things that are important, diversity and inclusivity in all aspects of the brand and the people we work with and the relationships. But also, I support charities with every single collection that I do. I donate to a charity and raise awareness about them. We make videos to encourage people to educate people about what these charities are doing. And so for me, that's kind of where I feel really good about being able to kind of do my bit and talk about the things that matter to me. And charity is a great way to do that.
One thing I noticed in all your drops so far, the unique packaging for the products can also double as these little collectibles and items that can be repurposed. Can you talk about this packaging strategy?
Yeah, well, like I'd mentioned before, that sustainability is complicated, and it's a long-term goal. There's lots of things as a brand that factor into what is sustainability. What does it mean to you? There are many different approaches to sustainability, and what's my angle on it? Well, as much as I can, I use materials that are, I make better choices of my materials. I might use recycled plastics, for example, or perhaps I'll use glass instead of plastic when I can. And again, not to overproduce and therefore create the potential for waste in the packaging. But one of the things that a creative solution to this I thought about quite early on was to, in the collections, design in such a way that, like you say, people wouldn't want to throw these objects away, that they can be repurposed and given a second life. So I think, the phallic lipsticks, a great one because it's such a heavy kind of industrial art object. I'd find it challenging to think that people would just dispose of it. It's a really kind of a great thing to have at home, on your table or whatever. And then the same with, say, the Wild Star palette. When you've used it, you can pop out the insert and it becomes a jewelry box. You don't have to throw it away. So that's one of my angles on how I like to try and reduce waste, essentially.
Have you noticed your customers pick up on that collectible strategy?
Yeah, well, I think I've, especially with the latest collection, people just really enjoy the products,
Right.
and yeah, I'd be actually interested to investigate a little bit further into how people are responding to that, because I'm hoping that people are more aware that that's kind of the approach.
So you're talking about Vivienne Westwood, and obviously she's played an incredibly influential role in fashion and beauty. And I know she was a big influence of yours. You were fortunate enough to collaborate with her before she passed away. Can you talk about how you brought Vivienne Westwood's collection to life?
Vivienne Westwood's collection. Do you mean her fashion brand? When I
A
worked with her in
fashion brand.
shows?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
in the shows, yeah.
yeah. Well, actually, this year was really special, obviously, because it was the first show since her passing, and it was a very thoughtful show, and actually the makeup references. Before the show, you get together with the hair and makeup team and the styling teams, and you discuss the collection and you try out different things. And this year, the mood board was Vivienne. Vivienne had her own incredible style and approach to hair and makeup. And so we just had this huge kind of polyboard filled with pictures of Vivienne and her mad kind of two-tone lip liner and her wobbly eye pencils and all of these really iconic images that I suppose it's you never see her all together all at once. And it was incredible. So we took her directly as an inspiration. And the way it often works with the Westwood team is that, you try things and you make some suggestions. And, by the end of, however long you've been there, 4 or 5 hours, nobody has a clue what they're doing. Nobody has a clue what they're doing. And actually, it all comes together in the show and backstage at the show. And I've kind of gotten used to that now. I used to be very sort of anxious about it and feel like, oh, we need to know what we're doing. But there's such a great level of trust between everybody. And I think the thing about the Westwood brand is that, part of the engaging thing about them is their choice of model talents. And the casting's always amazing. And you have new faces, old faces, quirky faces, whatever, very, very diverse and exciting. And so it's sometimes actually really hard to plan makeup when you don't have the model in front of you. So it's very much a collaborative process before the show happens, where I do my interpretation of what I think will look good on the model. I'll show it to the stylist. She might like it, she might not. And we just kind of work as a team together. And I've really come to kind of just trust the process now.
So last month it was announced that you joined Off-White Beauty as the curator. You've already created looks at Off-White's show in Paris. Can you talk about how that came about and what you've been tasked to do for Off-White's growing beauty business?
Yeah, so gosh, it's such an exciting time, actually. I had the great pleasure and honor of working with Virgil when he was at Louis Vuitton. I would do his men's shows. So, fortunately, I've actually spent some time with him, and I feel just very, very honored to be part of this kind of creative team, which is helping to kind of redefine what the Off-White brand is all about. I'll be working on the designing of the packaging, of course, the actual products themselves. I guess I'll be working on the fragrance. I'll be working on anything else, I suppose, that falls into the category of sort of beauty and cosmetics and sort of home, essentially. And I'll be working closely with IB. He's a creative director there,
right.
and his team, I guess on the campaigns. And it'll be, it's early days and we are developing things at the moment. And it's very exciting. So hopefully by this time next year, we'll be able to to talk about it again, and you'll be able to see what we've been up to.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. So let's talk about 2023. So do you have a date locked in for your next drop?
Yes, so I am launching a new lipstick as part of the new lips collection, the phallic shaped lips, on April the 12th, and it's called Flamingo. So that'll be out, Flamingo, and then we have another drop in June, which I'm very excited about, which I don't think I can share just yet. But we have a full calendar essentially, and I'm currently working on a documentary about global beauty aesthetics and where do our beauty ideals come from, which has also been very exciting and very kind of interesting and sort of in some ways help with what I'm doing for my brand at the moment.
When are you hoping to finish the documentary?
Well, that's a very good question. We have started filming, and I imagine we will continue filming throughout the year and into next year as well. So I'll keep you posted.
Isamaya, my final question is the luxury item question, which I ask all my guests. If you were stranded on a deserted island and you can only have one single luxury item with you, what would that luxury item be? It can't be any form of air or water transportation to get you off that deserted island, or anything that requires mobile service so you can call your friends or family to get you off that island. It's just you deserted on an island. What would that one luxury item you would like to have with you?
It would have to be, could I say music? Music has to be.
Okay, we'll say music.
The luxury item. Yeah. Music will keep me going for a long time.
Isamaya Ffrench, globally renowned makeup artist and founder of beauty line Isamaya. Good luck with your continued success. And thank you so much for joining me on The Luxury Item.
Thank you. Such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.